The third trial concerns our inwardness. We have thoughts about which we can be obsessive. We have feelings to which we can become attached and won't let go. We have impulses of will that we do not restrain. The beam is rooted in this inwardness with the same tenacity as the roots of a well-formed and very vital tree. It is no accident Christ speaks of this as a beam or a log, that is, as wooden. The feeling judgment is part of the needed skills of our soul life. We do not want to get rid of it, but we very much want to master it. The beam element or log comes from the thoughts, feelings, and impulses of will that we have let become old and rigid. A young tree is growing, vital, alive. Only a dead tree falls in the forest and needs to rot in order to serve the whole. When we are children, we do not possess this old soul structure. Everything is vital and alive and magical when we are young. Here is the clue to why Christ says, "Lest ye become again as little children, ye cannot enter the kingdom of heaven." The more flexible we let become our personality, the more inflexible we let become our personality, the more we are burdened with dead logs in the soul, and the more dead and dry this old timber is, the more easily it can be consumed in the fires and trials of the biography. "Wash out the inside of your cup," he said, "if you want the outside to be truly clean." To learn to deal with the beam is to undertake a house cleaning of the temple of our own soul. To recognize the beam and how it erupts in the soul is to begin a great work. A work we do not have to do alone. Remember, whenever 2 or more of you are gathered, and I will be with you to the ends of time. It is no accident that 12-step work requires a community, and that in America these are often oriented in a somewhat Christian way. Meetings often end with the Our Father. Since this work on the beam is within the inwardness, within the own soul, it is work of the Spirit. When we work out of our own spirit in the right way, seeking to actually practice what Christ taught, He then keeps us company. In this company we now begin to know that other part of the baptism spoken of by John the Baptist, holy breath. Not only are we to be baptized by the fires in our unique biography coming toward us from the outside, but from the social, historical community, family life, and context we are living, we are also to be baptized within by holy breath. Now, this deepening of our modern understanding of this baptism is accompanied by new revelation, and as this prophecy of the first John the Baptist recognized, because we live in the time of the true second coming. Christ brings this baptism as part of His coming again. In other places I write in more detail of how Rudolf Steiner was the second John the Baptist figure, the one announcing the true second coming, the voice crying in the wilderness of scientific materialism. This true second coming in clouds of heaven, in the heaven within us, as Christ points out in Luke, in the depths of our own conscious inwardness or soul life, leads to a second Eucharist to accompany the original. This too is experienced by modern disciples who follow the practices. See my essay video on saving the Catholic religion from the Roman Church. The experience of the holy breath comes about this way, as is described in my essay, The Meaning of Earth Existence in the Age of the Consciousness Soul, an essay that can be read for free in many places on my website, and which is the summa of my book, The Way of the Fool. Here's part of what I wrote there. Thus we are truly and continuously born again today. Each act of moral grace is another second ethereal Eucharist and birth, from out of our spiritual childhood and into our spiritual adulthood, baptized outwardly by the fires of the times in our biographies and by holy breath within. A second Eucharist where Christ gives of His own substance, that biblical knowing of the good, His own being. For us to truly know the good requires that we join our own soul to the good. Our yearning to author the good out of ourselves is how we participate in the baptism of being truly born again, and how we participate in the sacrament of the Second Eucharist. Christ also participates by giving to us, out of himself, this very good, this moral grace. When having received within ourselves this sacrament of the Second Eucharist, an act which only arises because we seek it and form its actual application, we remain free. We create moral law. We author the fulfillment of the law and the prophets. Given to us within by Christ as a capacity, we then author its incarnate nature and pass it on to the world of our biographies. From out of us, thence into the outer world, or into the inner world, we then ourselves author this good, love-engendered, free moral grace. But how does Christ do this? Is the good offered to us in this second sacrament as if it was a thing passed by hand from one to another? No. Christ, as holy breath, breathes upon the slumbering, burning embers of our own good nature, just as we breathe upon a tiny fire in order to increase its power. He sacrifices his being into this breath, which gives life to the tiny ember-like fire of our moral heart. The holy breath becomes within the soul of each human being who asks, seeks, and knocks, a gift of living warmth that enlivens our own free fire of moral will. The narrow gate opens both ways, making possible thereby the intimate dialogue and conversation of moral deeds and thoughts that is woven between the I am, the thou, and the Christ, wherever two or more are gathered, which intimate conversation leads ultimately to the consecration, the character development of the soul. In this way our thinking can now behold the meaning of the earth's existence in the age of the consciousness soul, a macrocosmic rite, a second ethereal Eucharist, in which we give birth out of ourselves in the most intimate way possible, knowledge of the good, not as mere thought, but as life-filled moral will, breathed into greater power by the sacrifice of the true ethereal substance of Christ's being in the form of holy breath.